Let's talk about the 1981 DeLorean DMC-12 as it appears in the Crew 2. It is the only car DeLorean Motors ever made, and due to its starring role in Back to the Future, it has a cult status that obliges it to be included in all racing games. Well, let's look at the statistics in the game. And yes, it looks different from standard DeLorean. It has cosmetics put on it. It starts off at 63 performance level, which translates into 209 km an hour top speed and 130 brake horsepower. In game, it could be upgraded to 280 performance level, at which we get 362 km an hour top speed, 680 brake horsepower, from 0 to 100 km an hour in 2.57 seconds, quarter mile in 9.47 seconds, 1 lateral G, and brake distance from 100 km an hour to 0 in 16.61 meters. And of course, the parts will give us some other bonuses, as you can see. Now, how does that all translate in the game? Well, let's go to the Dominion Forsberg number 7 race to show you the performance of the car. This race has plenty of turns and some straights, and is a good way to show the speed and grip that the car provides. And here at the start, I'm not using nitro because I don't need it, because all I need to do is to get to the 4th gear here, and I do that without any problems. This car has a manual transmission with 5 gears in it, and I'm gonna be driving mostly in the 4th, sometimes the 5th, sometimes dropping to the 3rd, but mostly in the 4th gear. Here we go into the turns here. I'm using the 4th gear, and I'm sliding just slightly as I'm doing so. I'm trying to use nitro now to catch up to the Ghost. The Ghost is Mazda MX-5 Miata, and I will never catch up to the Ghost here. As you can see, I should have switched to the 3rd gear earlier. As a result, I hit the sides because I was going way too fast and I drifted off. And that's something that this car does. It does have a certain amount of drift, but it's controllable drift. It's possible to catch yourself and get out of the drift. It's not something that where the car will just completely go out to the sides, left or right, without any control. And this next few turns I'm doing in the 4th gear, just slightly lifting up in order to make it into the turns. Then I'm pressing it now, going into the 5th, using nitro to speed up. Now I'm going back to the 4th in order to get into these 2 turns, not to fly off the track. And again, I'm making these turns mostly by lifting off, not using brake that much. I don't need to quite often use the brake here. I just lift up. I do slide a bit more than I would like, but it is again controllable slide here when I do so. And so I'm now going through these few turns, dropping down to 3rd here. Now as you can see, I'm not hitting the boards anymore, going through the 3rd here into these turns, going up to the 4th here, trying to keep my RPMs high as I go through these turns, at the same time not to drift off. But I cannot keep the RPMs high enough in order to get to the 5th because I'm always trying, but I cannot get to the 5th because here again more turns are coming up. I have to lift off in order to go through them. Here again lifting off a bit, maybe even braking sometimes here in order to control the drift. And then now, only now I can get to the 5th. If I try and here it is, I'm getting the 5th now. I'm going to drop down to 4th again in order to make it into this turns, not to drift a lot again. And I'm going to go ahead. There's no chance of me catching up to the Ghost at this point at all, as I'm trying to make it through here. These few turns I'm doing by just lifting off a bit, slightly braking. Again, nitro trying to catch up, trying to cut some time down. Maybe I can beat the actual requirement on timing for this race, but I'm not gonna be able to, seems to be catch up to the Ghost at all. If the Ghost is too far away, we're going in the 3rd through these turns, going to the 4th again, trying to keep the RPMs high, not hitting the board at the same time, going through again the turn, trying to put it, the pedal down, but again not enough straight to get to the 5th, and we have to start lifting off in order to make this last few turns. So here we go, last 2 turns, slightly lifting off, and there we are, the finish. And I went into the 5th, but it doesn't really matter. As you can see, I did not beat requirements for this race, but in the end it was still enjoyable to race in this car because While we do have some drift on the corners which do not allow us then to speed up as much, it's still a controllable drift. It's not something like I'm going to be thrown out of the race completely. And now we should look at the car and its performance in the race that is specifically designed for it. The strange case of 1950s race is exactly that, as it requires Delorean to race.
3, 2, 1.
And now we're going to use a bit of nitro here at the very start in order to get past Beef and his gang, with who we are, I guess, racing here, because that's how it looks like at least. And there we are in the fourth. I began already kind of destroying the lamp poles or electrical poles or whatever. We are going into the fifth here, going into this turn. I don't actually have to hit the lamp poles. My car can actually do good turns here, and I will demonstrate that eventually. But at the very beginning, sometimes it's just too tempting to kind of make a shortcut. So we're going here in the fifth, and I'm not using nitro because I'm waiting a very sharp turn, so I don't want to speed up too much. Here a nice turn is coming up, we easily do it, and here's a sharp turn. I have to drop to the second and go over the ground in order to make it so I'm not going to fly off completely. Here we go back to the fourth, into the third again to make this turn, and now we're gonna start using nitro to speed up because next section is very straight. And I'm using nitro in order to gain as much lead as possible from the opponents that I'm racing against. Again, I'm kind of knocking down things and destroying the front of the car. I should not be doing that. I don't need to. I can stay really well on the asphalt here, and here a few turns. We are doing them no problems, no issues, just turning. And here we are. We're going to again nitro in order to gain that more of that lead. I'm going into the fourth with that turn again, staying in this fourth in order to make this turn, and going back to the fifth again nitro in order to gain more of a lead against the opponents. And here we are, few more turns. I'm slightly lifting up when I go into these turns, slightly bit more, maybe lift off, a bit more brake, so I didn't have to do that whole fishtailings here, and that's why I had to go back to the fourth in order to gain back control. But now we are back in the fifth. We see a few more turns coming up. It's small turns, no problems here. Just I can use that with the steering. Don't need to brake, don't need to gear down. Few more turns again. You can see I can stay on the asphalt, no issues here. Dropping down to the fourth. I should have dropped to the third, then I would not have hit the sides. Here we go again. I'm trying to speed up, and we go another turn. Now I'm dropping to the third, and you can see I've done it pretty beautifully. Here again into the fourth, another turn. I do it pretty well, no hitting the sides. Here again we go again, another turn, dropping down to the third and making it through here, no problems. Again speeding up, going to the fourth again, trying to build up a lead, or trying to keep the lead actually more correctly here. Last few turns here, we're going in the fourth, now to the fifth, making this turn, and now I'm just gunning it with nitro to the finish. So here we go. Alright, so overall I would say the car handled pretty well, nice. Again, there was some drifting, but it is controllable drifting, and if I would have just steered a bit more, I would have gotten into the turns without hitting poles or the sides. Now let's do a race that has longer straights and some tricky turns as well. Central Woods West is perfect for this and will allow us to go against modern sports cars.
3, 2, 1.
Okay, I'm gonna speed up here using nitro in order to get ahead of all these modern cars and try to wedge myself between them as well. It is a silver badge that I'm driving. Here we go, we are in the fifth gear now. I'm pressing it forward, trying to get past all the opponents. Almost there, almost past them. Now we passed them. And here's the first turn. I slightly lift off in order to make it and go through here again, using nitro to speed up, dropping down to the fourth here in order to make this turn and another few turns. And here we are, and dropping down to the fourth is what's going to allow the opponents now to catch up to me, because they don't have to and they have a bit more power, I guess, and it's going better from the engine to the wheels. Next few turns here, Again, I'm pulling a bit behind, but I'm doing pretty well in these turns. Even in this one, I'm not sliding off like the rest of the opponents here. I'm dropping now down to the third in order to make these few turns here, and at the same time I'm trying to go accurately enough on the road and not to drift off in order to catch up to the opponent again. I'm not keeping to the road that well, sadly, because I need to turn enough to do so, and the car sometimes feels like it's understeering, but only sometimes. And now we're back in the fifth. I'm using Nitro to catch up to my opponents. I'm gonna catch up here, pass him, and keep on going. Now I'm gonna drop down to the fourth, make this turn, and this kind of a shortcut by breaking through everything that's possible here and completely wrecking the front of the car so it doesn't look good at all anymore. It didn't look that good anymore before. So here we are in the fourth again here, going through that turn pretty well. Now I'm gonna try to speed up and go into the fifth gear here, and as a result, sometimes I'm not gonna be keeping to the track as accurately as possible. Again, it's gonna be totally possible for me to do so, it's just that I'm not doing it myself. So that's all on me, that's not the car's fault. And here we are going forward, next few turns here, pretty well at first, but then it's really bad. I should have gone into the fourth much earlier in order to make that turn. But next few turns I will do pretty well. So I'm going into the fifth. You can see that next few turns I'm doing well. I'm staying on the track, and here I'm just going to slightly lift off and make it into this turn. Pretty nice, beautiful, no issues. Next turn I'm dropping down to the third in order to make it back to the fourth, again back to the third, again making this turn really nice, beautifully, no issues. Another turn here in the third, and now I'm gunning it, going into the fourth, trying to get to the fifth, but I'm not gonna make it because there's a finish. So there you go. You see, the car performs really well. It stays on the asphalt really well. All you just have to do is steer and control those turns, and you will be fine. So, in conclusion, Delorean DMC-12 is a good street racing car. It has a bit of an issue making the turns, there's some drift, but it is controllable. You won't win all the races with it, but it is possible to win many of them. So overall, I like 1981 Delorean DMC-12 in the Crew 2. Its cosmetics on, it looks great and performs well enough, and generally it is enjoyable to drive in the game. Thank you for watching and listening. If you like this video, please like it. If you didn't like it, don't like it, and please subscribe.